Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to start writing a book of your life. Life is messy, life is complicated, life is, so enriching. How do you take all those messages and stories and get them onto the page? Because I know how overwhelming it is. And then once you figure out what you're writing, it's a matter of actually getting the writing done, which is another level. There's multiple levels, and it's so challenging sometimes to figure out how to get this all flowing together. I know how overwhelming it can be to take your story, your message, your interesting life, and just condense it into 40,000 words. How you can do that, all the tips are in this video. By the end of this video, you'll learn how to gather information to support your story, how to map out your story, and how to set reasonable writing goals. And stay tuned until the end of the video for a resource I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. It's so valuable when you think about writing a book of your life to narrow it down. Life is so big. There's so much that we could say. But what are the actual messages of your story? What are the biggest lessons? What are the things that you think are really going to resonate? When you go to a party and you get introduced to somebody new, what do people say about you? What do you put in your bio on social media? What is 150 words? I think those insights are valuable in figuring out what our message is all about. Whether it's overcoming a struggle, whether it's addiction, whether it's challenges in the office, whether it's family issues, whether it's tragedy and loss, whether it's empowerment and success, whatever the case may be, what does your story say? Because that's really going to matter. You don't want to just put out a book that says, I was born here, I did this, I went to college, I did this, I had this career, I had this family. No one's going to learn something from that. It needs to be through the lens of something. So you need to think about what your message is all about in its clearest form. I think back to a friend of mine, Rich, and I worked on his project with another writer, and he had all of these stories, hundreds and hundreds of stories, and some of the stories were so strongly tied into his book and his message, and other ones had nothing to do with it at all. And he wanted to include all of them. And we had to keep talking to him about okay, we can remove this one. This one doesn't actually fit. So what is the lens through which your story matters? What's the most important element of your story? How can you, condense all of these messages into this, kind of package? Because it can be very complicated when we think about just writing a story, especially a memoir of our life. If we include everything, it's going to be all over the place. You want the book to be pared down and as compact as possible. I think back to myself. I started growing plants, hydroponic plants in my apartment, just because, why not, And I started growing vegetables, and some of the plants were really flourishing, and then other elements, other pieces of the plant weren't. So I had to start trimming those branches, trimming the branches that aren't working out to allow the good ones to grow. And I think book writing's similar. You have to, we talk about, killing your babies in book writing. It's okay, well, this story is really interesting, but does it actually matter for the book? Is it really a part of the book, or is it something we want to keep out? Thinking about that, thinking about the things that you want to keep and thinking about the things that don't quite fit can help you clarify your message and make it as strong as possible. A major part of your story is gathering information, whether that's talking to people, whether that's doing outside research, whether that's tying things together. You need to do those things to support your message. Otherwise, it's just going to sound like you're just throwing ideas out there. You're not tethered to reality. You can just say whatever you want. You want the reader to know that there's authenticity and credibility behind the words you're saying. You want to support this with evidence. You want to support it with other perspectives. You don't want to write a book and publish it and then have other people come out and say, this didn't happen, this is garbage. This book is full of mistruths. That's bad, and it's not just covering, and trying to make sure that all these other people are heard from. It's about making your story as strong as possible, and by getting those other vantage points, whether it's documentation, whether it's outside interviews, whether it's perspectives, you can build commonality, you can build, the truest version of your story. You want this to be as strong as possible, and you want it to hit multiple vantage points, even if you're the main storyteller. So gathering information is a huge element of the book writing process. What does the structure of your story look like? By mapping out your story, you can have so much success, and it's just so much easier to think about the book writing process in terms of what's inside the frame and outside of the frame of your book. What is the flow? What is the reader journey from beginning to end of the book? What realization do they come to by the end? What sense of closure are you sharing with them? What are the lessons and takeaways? You want to have some vantage point to be able to look back on your life. Whether it's the end of your life, whether it's the middle of your life, you don't want to be right in the middle of the storm because it's tough to look back when the storm's right over you. You want to be able to get to this vantage point, this ability to look back before you really start diving into the story. Because if you're not at this place of closure and contentment, if you're not at this new normal, you're going to look back in anger, frustration. There's going to be other emotions at play. You haven't fully worked through everything. And because of that, the book writing process is going to be stifled. It's going to be harder. And you may also incorporate elements of emotions and feelings and sentiments about the story that aren't necessarily what you want to share. Maybe you haven't worked through it and you're still struggling. And because of that, you can't confront the truth in the best way possible. I think back to some of my favorite clients to work with. And these are people who have struggled with a lot of challenges in their life. And they were able to look back in clarity and, just through the right sentiment. Some of them have gone through therapy or other healing modalities to be able to move forward. You kind of need that. In order to look back, you need to be able to move forward. So getting to the right vantage point is going to help make this process easier. If you're constantly struggling and overwhelmed with every step of the writing journey, it's going to be easier for you to quit and give up because this is just too hard. Now it's dredging up all these bad memories. And it's not to say that your book necessarily needs to be just bad and depressing and sad and all those things. It really needs to incorporate the human spirit. But if you haven't faced those challenges yet and gotten to a place of closure with them, it's going to be very difficult for you to dredge up those memories. You want to be able to dredge up the memories from a place of disconnect in a way. It's part of the story, but it's also something that you can handle, something that you can dig up if you need to and you can put back down. But getting across that bridge, finding closure in your story is going to help make the writing process easier. When I focus on book writing, I focus on weekly and daily goals. How much writing can I get done in a certain amount of time to keep pace with my goal? If I want to write a book in 3 to 6 months, I need to write X amount of words every day or every week. And if I'm not doing that, now I need to speed up. I often tell people about 275. If you write 275 words a day, after a full year, you'll have 100,000 words written. That's not to say that you want to write a 100,000 word book. That's pretty long. Your message might be 40 or 50 or 60,000 words, but you want to keep going with it and you want to make daily and weekly incremental progress. By building good habits into your writing, it's going to make the writing journey easier. If you're really struggling to get words down, it's really going to be tough for you to move forward. It's really going to be tough for you to find success with it and build enough momentum to feel confident. Without it, you're going to be in this constant state of frustration, disappointment, unrest, whatever you want to call it, where you're not feeling completely satisfied with what you're doing. You can't see the finish line. You're struggling to make progress. You're putting the book aside multiple times. You'll come back to it, get motivated, lose momentum, give up. You don't want to do that. You want to keep going and you want to build daily and weekly progress into this book writing. Because by doing that, you're just going to feel so much confidence inside of you. You're going to see what you can do over a week or a month and you're going to say, I can keep doing this. This is possible for me. This is achievable. So if you keep going, there's so much on the opposite side of that, but you really need to keep going. And by keeping going, I mean just doing it day by day by day. It's a gradual process. It takes time. This is not something that you're just going to rush out and do in a weekend, but you can do it over the course of a lot of weekends. If you keep stacking the wins and the gains over and over, it's like going to the gym and you work out. You're not going to see the gains right now. You're going to see the gains 2 months from now. If you keep going and going and going. So it's just habits. It's habit forming, it's building good habits, it's making consistent progress. Writing this book and finishing it is really a measure of your productivity, making the most of your time and staying focused. When thinking about the most important element of success, and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett have been asked this, what is the most important element of success? And they had one word, and it was focus. If you can focus on something, you can do it. If you can't focus on something, it gets that much harder. With book writing, focus means staying committed to the moment. It's this flow state. When you can get into this state where this is the only thing you're thinking about and the words are just pouring out of you, you can get so much done. But think about how much you get done when you're sitting there next to your phone and it buzzes again, and it buzzes again. Now you're thinking about the email that you have to send. Now you're thinking about responding to this other person. Now you're thinking about this other thing you have to order online. And oh, a TV show is going to start soon and I need to go check this. By the time that you sort through all these things, you forgot what you were even doing. You struggle with focus, and because you're missing this focus element, you're not getting enough done in the time that you have allotted. Whether it's 15, 30, 45, 60 minutes or whatever, you're not getting enough done in that time. And now you feel like I need to spend more time on this. Maybe it's not actually that you have to spend more time on this. Maybe it's that you have to spend more focus on this. Maybe you have to think of focus as the key and not the time element. Because if you're really focused for 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can get a lot of writing done. You can simply sit and type. You can just type it out. Type out the words, type out whatever's flowing out of you, and you can go fix it later. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's just simply getting the words onto the page. Or you could go for a walk and record yourself talking. It's about being purposeful and figuring out how you can make the most of your time, and focus is the way to do that. Focus is the way to keep you on point, so when you have these little windows in your day, you can actually get writing done. Being able to do that is the ability to transform your story and get it onto the page. If you want to learn more about how to start writing a book of your life, I definitely want you to check out a course I developed. It's a good book writing accountability course. And it is a weekly check-in. It's a chance to stay committed to this, to keep that fire lit. It's the momentum to keep going. There's so many lessons that I've learned from my years as a book ghostwriter and book writer, and I just want to share them with authors like you. So if you're interested, head to my website. It's goodbookmastery.com. You can click the link below and check out the course. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.